Welcome to the Marketing Stack podcast. And on this podcast, I interview a lot of interesting people about marketing, about how they're trying to make an impact with their business. And we cover some of the latest tools and techniques of things that are working right now on digital marketing aspects. And I'm here talking to Sachin Patel, who I regard as a celebrity in the space because he's been active in the functional medicine space for a long time. And he's on a mission to just get the word out, make people more healthy. And we'll get into that in the discussion. So Sachin, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. Oh, you're muted.
Varun, it's my pleasure. I'm so grateful that we have this opportunity to connect, and such a wonderful thing that you're doing, helping spread the messages of other businesses around the world. And specifically, the more we can help health practitioners that are very thoughtful in their approach and really looking to make a big impact. It's amazing that functional medicine is getting the attention that it finally, it's always deserved, but I think it needs it now more than ever. So it's great to be, teaming up with people like yourself and having discussions like this, because I think that the world is prime for change with our messages.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And if you've heard anything about me in the last year, so because of the pandemic, I started working with some doctors, functional medicine, naturopathic, and it was a space that I felt I needed to work in a little bit more, purely because, functional medicine doctors don't have that marketing experience. They don't have that business background, and they're just a few players in the market trying to spread the message like you. And so I thought, well, let me try to, jump in and see where I can help. And so the podcast has been about that, my YouTube channel. And I just wanted to get in touch with people, one, so that I can learn, and two, so that, we can spread the message to the podcast as well. So let's get into, sure. So let's get into some of the impact stuff, because just before we started the recording, you said that you feel like you're not making an impact, even though you've been working with content and you've been doing sort of talks. I watched an episode on YouTube where you were talking at the Functional Forum 4 years ago, which was on YouTube. And it's interesting that you say you're not quite making the impact that you would have liked. So talk to me a little bit about that. What are you doing? What are you trying? How's it going?
Yeah, great question. And one of the things that you said at the very beginning, and I'm so humbled and honored for the perspective, but you said that you kind of regard me as a celebrity, and I was like literally taken aback by that, because when you're inside this bottle, and my friend Joe Polish taught me this, right, is that when you're inside the bottle, you can't really see what the label says. So from our perspective, it's like we're always wondering, are we doing enough? Are we making enough of an impact? And we're always questioning that. So to get the feedback from your perspective kind of closes that loop for us to know that, hey, it really is making an impact. It's getting people's attention, and it's having a ripple far and wide. And we sometimes don't always get that feedback loop being closed, right? So the conversations like this, where you say something like that very casually, but to me, it's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And the first thing that excites me is being able to tell my team and share with them, like, hey, this message is propagating, it's getting out there, and people are helping us spread it as well, right? That's what podcasts like this do, is they spread a good message. And then we're through this process, I hope, gonna teach other people how they can propagate their message as well. So exciting times ahead for us as practitioners and as healers, for marketers, because this is a message that I think anyone can get behind as well, right? Like, we need more marketers too, marketing this message out there in the world. So we need more marketers in some cases. Well, maybe not. I think we have a more powerful message and a more resonant message with what people actually believe in their hearts, right? Not in their minds. The mind can be washed, right? But the heart stays true. So if we can get the right message, it can expand very quickly. And we have a message that other people want to spread too, because it's so positive and it's so aspirational for a future that I think that people actually want, right? If we take a look at the future that essentially you can tell the direction a society is going in based on the marketing, based on the advertising, right? Based on the messaging that's being delivered, the propaganda in many cases that's being delivered to people, you can get a sense of the direction that energy is trying to take you into.
Yeah,
And
and
so if,
unfortunately, sorry,
yeah,
I just wanted to jump in there. So, from my perspective, unfortunately, obviously, functional medicine is the opposite of what big pharma and all of these companies are trying to do, and so it feels like, I'm pretty sure it feels like this war where it's a versus, it's a boxing match. It's something that you're against all the time. And I guess in that, when you're inside the bottle, it probably feels to you that that's why you're not winning, because there's big money behind all the other brands.
well, here's what I think. I don't, and here's where the opportunity lies. I'm loving this conversation. So here's where I think the opportunity lies is I feel like that way of thinking may be a limiting belief, right? So to say that we don't have enough money to solve this problem basically creates a scenario where we will never win, right? Because we'll never have as much money as they have. However, we have a more powerful message, and a message that can spread because it's aspirational and it's so simple that everyone gets it, right? We never get pushback, right? Nobody pushes back when I tell them, listen, I'm going to help you find the root cause. I'm going to help you identify lifestyle changes that you can make. I'm going to put you in charge of your health and your family's health and create generational health for your entire lineage from this point moving forward. I mean, who doesn't want that, right?
Of course.
It's enough people haven't heard the message in the right context. And I believe that, this is it's not quite a David versus Goliath. I think we can kind of walk hand in hand, right? And be friends and understand where one system is beneficial, whereas the other may not be. And they can coexist because they need to coexist. However, people just don't know that this is available to them, right? People only know that if they're in a swimming pool, they can only use a life jacket and stay afloat. They can't learn how to swim. We teach people how to swim, right? Mm-hmm. And listen, if I'm going swimming in a lake, I'm going to take a life jacket with me if I feel that's necessary. If I'm going canoeing or something, I'm going to take a life jacket with me, right? And it's good. So it's good to have that there. You hopefully never want to use it. It's good to have it there, but it's also probably a good idea to learn how to swim.
100%. I think learning to swim is a fundamental, just like learning to drive a car.
And learning to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we have something that people can really get behind. And so the message is so much more powerful that I believe that if we use a certain methodology, it can go viral very quickly. So that's what I love about what we do. We're waiting for that Super Bowl moment, but as soon as it happens, like what I'm trying to do now is prepare practitioners so they're ready for that Super Bowl moment, right? Where this is the most obvious choice. This is what people seek, not last, but first. And it actually creates a shift in our society, right? In one generation, this is the only way to change things, is to teach people how to be healthy.
And I love your perspective, because you haven't kept that knowledge to yourself, where you're like, I want to build this mega big clinic across the US or across the world. You're actually helping other practitioners build their businesses as well, which is clearly indicative of the fact that you're not selfish with being able to teach what you know, not only from a marketing perspective, but also from a healthy lifestyle perspective. And I think that's hugely important, and that's the thing that's needed the most.
Yeah, I mean, Burhan, many years ago, I asked myself, what is the actual problem and what is a viable solution? So our current, and not to make this conversation, I know we want to talk about marketing, but I feel like this messaging is very important. And if people can, who are listening to this, our practitioners can then better articulate their message, then I think we're all winning. And so one of the things that we find is if we can teach practitioners how to become better at telling their story and, drawing the patient in and, casting enemies or casting stones at a common enemy, and teaching them how to take the best, control possible of their mind and their health and how they express themselves. It's really important that practitioners learn how to do this, and telling their story is a big part of it. Sharing their big why, right, is part of it. What is the the wrong that they want to right. That's a big part of it. And the opportunity is immense. So this is a skill set that many people may not realize is what is holding the entire profession back, right? It's holding their community back because their message isn't connecting. And so, yeah, I'm so thrilled to have this dialogue with you, to be able to share how people can do it better, and learn from you as well. I'm excited to learn what you've learned from all the interviews and everything that you've done too.
Yeah, so leading into that, so I've had a couple of discussions with people for the summit. As I said to you, I hosted a summit for health practitioners in May, and also just leading up to that summit, been talking to people on the podcast and that, just digging in, researching the industry. I find that a lot of people they're struggling with sort of just the anxiety or the fear of actually putting their message out. They're struggling with finding that voice, trying to figure out, well, how am I going to fit into this pool of resources and, fight the war, or, just jump into the fight. And then there's also this thing of, a lot of people are saying they don't have the time to learn the skills, to learn the marketing, to learn social media, to learn all the tools that we have available to us to get the message out. So what do you see, or what would you say to that in terms of what I've seen?
Yeah, I think marketing is its own. You can get a degree in marketing, right? There's businesses that all they do is branding and marketing. So I think for us practitioners, like, somebody has to build a bridge, right, from us being clinicians and practitioners and advisors of health to teaching us how to better articulate our message. Because messaging is also important in the interactions that we have individually with our clients as well, right? So learning how to be a more effective communicator helps you in your one-on-one interactions, but it also helps you in your one-to-many interactions when you're sharing through advertising or your blogs or even podcasts and stuff. So yeah, super important.
Yeah, and I figured that out from researching you. Is communication is a big pillar that you stand on, not only to heal yourself from what's the position in the throat. I'm not a medical person, but you referred to which part of it?
Vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, yes.
Yeah.
And so for me as well, starting the podcast, getting online a little bit more is indicative of the fact that, when we have these tools, we have reach, we have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have all of these tools that are there to help us spread a message. I always say that the internet is just a giant telephone, and it's actually a megaphone where you can speak to thousands, if not millions of people at the same time. Mm-hmm. And the leverage we have there is a real opportunity. The only struggle is people haven't quite understood how to get the word out. And it's one of my missions. It's one of my challenges as well. And I know you're on that same path. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for having that as a pillar.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I think communication, spills into our personal lives as well, right? So we can be more effective with our children, with our spouse, with our close family, our teams, internally with our business. It's one of the things that I say separates us from all the other animals. Is the sophistication of communication that we have as human beings is quite remarkable when you think about it, and it's not fully leveraged. So being a more effective communicator is a way to leverage a technology that we all have. However, we've never been trained how to use.
Well, it's interesting. I was having a discussion with a friend of mine yesterday, and I said to her that I think my role is to, on one hand, remind people that in the past, when we used to pick up the telephone, dial the circle to try to get across to maybe another part of the world, or even just our next door neighbor, it used to take a while to actually have a conversation. Sometimes there was lag, because if people were on the other side of the world, it'd be like 5-10 seconds before the message actually arrives. And then time zones just weren't that easy to navigate. And where we've come from just in my own lifetime it's insanity. I would never have imagined we would have gotten this far. I think people were expecting flying cars and hovering skateboards, but we'll probably get there at some point. But despite that, I think we've come a long way, and it's our responsibility to use the tools. And the fact that they're free is even just more mind blowing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that there lies the opportunity, right? Is the average practitioner, the advantage that they have is that majority of people will not take action. Mm-hmm. Right. So even people who are listening to this, the majority of people listening to this will still not take action. Right. And that's an unfortunate thing. However, it's the case, right? Not everyone takes action. So there's another advantage that practitioners have, right? When they say, let's say, for example, I might hear practitioners say, well, I suck at marketing, right? Well, then let's break down what that is, right? What marketing is storytelling. And so Joe Polish taught me this as well. I learned so much from Joe. He taught me this is that marketing is storytelling and sales is persuasions. And the better the story, then the less you have to persuade people. So the way the brain remembers things better and resonates better with people and connects better with people is through stories. In fact, if you were to do a scan of somebody's brain while they're telling a story, if the other person is really dialed in and connected, the same parts of their brain are going to light up as well. So we deeply resonate with each other through story. And that's how information is also passed on as well, as through stories. My son, for example, every night, I still put him to bed and he says, Dad, tell me a story. And so I tell him a story. And if I tell him a story I've told him before, he's like, Dad, you told me that story. I'm like, how do you remember that? And it's because the brain doesn't forget stories. And so I have to make up all these stories every day. I've got to make up these new stories. And some days I'll get frustrated. I'm like, damn it. Like, I don't know how many more stories I can make up about my childhood. Right. And so children remember. It's amazing how children remember. And it's how adults remember too, is through stories.
And, going back to, talking about the storytelling piece, it's one of those things where if we had a mechanism, and this is something that I learned this week, actually from Matthew Dix, who wrote the book Story Worthy. He mentions this, he gives us exercise of doing homework for life. He calls it homework for life, and is like, spend 5 minutes or 15 minutes every day at the end of the day and write down some of the key moments that happened in your day so that you could develop them into stories later. And it's kind of epiphany type moments, like the moments in your day, which are the little things, but that make an impact in your life, so that you can refer to it later and maybe use it in content or write a book from that, or just use it in a talk or in a podcast or that type of thing. And so I think it's, in a way, your son is forcing you to do that exercise with him, which also reinforces your impact, not only to him, but also on the stuff that you've done.
Yeah, I love that. Is there a framework that you like to follow? Do you follow the hero's journey?
I have the hero's journey. I try to follow that for a lot of my content as well. It's tricky though, because when you're trying to educate, you can't always use that format, but yeah, it's a classic for sure.
Love it.
So I wanted to dig into, I know your primary platform is Facebook. And I wanted to talk a little bit about Facebook and how you've seen it. One, why do you specifically work on Facebook? Why haven't you used YouTube? Are you on TikTok? What platforms do you regard as good for practitioners today?
Well, I think the best answer is to use all of them, right, in some way, shape, or form. But one of the things I also learned is to stay focused, right? And where, if you can focus your attention on one thing, then you can master how to use that tool better. And listen, I'm not a marketer by heart, right? And it's more out of necessity is why I have to learn how to communicate my message. So I still have somebody managing the technological aspects of it, right? Of running the ads and managing and things like that. So sometimes how you promote is also going to be based on the skill set of the team that you have too, right? So our team is very skilled and very well coached in how to leverage Facebook and webinars as a platform. And then we've been using Facebook to run challenges and group programs and things like that. So I love that everything's all in one place, because I also look at it from the perspective of the user as well. So if I were to do this challenge in Facebook, then people already have Facebook on their phone. There's like no friction for them to get signed up. They understand how to use the platform. It's native. It's already native to them, versus me having to then take my audience to then get used to YouTube Lives and maybe download an app that they didn't have before or whatnot. So we've kind of learned to use Facebook in a very impactful way for us to not just market, but then also deliver our services as well. So right now we're running a challenge, for example, for there's about over 200 practitioners that are doing it. And it's a 5-day challenge teaching them how to run a challenge. And so we're basically managing, the communications with them through text messaging, through email, and then we're going live in the Facebook group every day and then sharing, powerful little tidbits of information. So if I were to do Instagram marketing, right, then that Instagram person may not use Facebook or may not, have much of a awareness of the platform itself. So we like to, kind of be able to market and deliver on the same platform. We found that to be very advantageous.
Yeah. Keeping it on the platform that most or majority of people are using.
Mm-hmm.
It is unfortunate because I have seen a lot of people say that they're just not on Facebook, or they don't want to use Facebook, or they used to be on Facebook and they don't use it anymore because it's too distracting, or there's too many negative messages there, whatever the case may be. How do you combat that? Because there are a lot of those people as well.
Yep. So really easy. So one of the things, I'll give you an example. So as people are going through our challenge right now, they get a playbook. It's a Google document that I update every day, and I release new resources for them. And then in there, I will add the link for where they could watch today's training in Facebook. So if they have Facebook, they can do that. If not, then my team downloads the video and then uploads it to Vimeo, so then people can watch it on Vimeo. So we give those people an alternative. They just don't obviously get to participate in the group discussions, and they don't get to participate in the live chat and stuff like that. But I mean, somebody's gonna have a problem with every platform you use, right? Sure. So some people, if you introduce a whole new platform, like let's, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but let's say Kartra or Kajabi or Infusionsoft or Thinkific, and they've never used that platform before, right? And it's not native to them where they're going to see notifications and things like that. Whereas in Facebook, they're going to see the notifications. They're going to engage. They've already got their profile set up. Like everything's done, right? Yeah. If I give them a new platform now, then, then I don't think would be as effective.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's one of those versus things where you can't satisfy everybody. But I love the fact that you've created a way that you can spread your message as wide as possible, despite the tool that the person needs to use.
Yeah, listen, somebody might not like Google, right? Like they might have a problem with Google. They're like, I don't use Google Docs. So like, what can you do, right? You use the resources that you're using with the best of intentions, and makes it easy for people. And it checks off a lot of the boxes for us. Right. And if somebody wants to invent a platform that has as many users and as much opportunity, then I'll jump all over that too.
Of course. we would flock, us marketers would flock to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the other things you spoke about 4 years ago in that functional forum was diversification of income. And I think you did a podcast episode recently where you spoke about that as well. One of the things that I've identified is courses to educate patients, courses to educate clients. Doesn't matter which field you're in, courses are a great way to not only leverage your time, but also just get your message out there to people who need it, to people who are sometimes paying for it, or maybe even on a free platform. What have you seen that's working today in terms of digital products that you recommend your mentors or your groups of people?
Yeah. So as you would probably know, that's a loaded question. What we do have is a framework that we teach. So I can walk you through that. So first, before anyone starts putting their message out there, they really have to know who they are, right? And that self-exploration is really important, because then we can as we go through this self-discovery process, we discover our dharma, which is like why we were born, why we were put on this planet at this time, what purpose are we here to serve? And so once you find that purpose, then you got to know what you stand for. So once what or who you stand for, I'm sorry. So it's, what do I need to do? What do I represent? Who am I? And then who do I help? Right? I help people with this particular problem. And this is what I'm protecting them from, right? So this is the wrong that we want to right, and we want to protect you from this. And in our case, it might be illness, or it might be deceit, or it might be, ineffective solutions for them, or band-aid solutions, right? Where we want to protect people from that, right? And people want to be protected from that. So getting clear on that, and then consistently sharing your message. So whether you're using Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, right? Like LinkedIn is very humbling for me, because I'll post the same thing on Facebook and I'll get a couple hundred, likes or comments, and I'll post the same thing in LinkedIn and you get almost no engagement. But I realize I have to pay my dues, right? And I went from, so far, started off getting 1 or 2 likes, and now my last 2 posts have gotten 20. So I think people are starting to land and resonate with the message, and it'll grow, because I see that as a blue ocean for our message. And so lots of opportunity there, but we all start somewhere. We all start from scratch. And so start putting your message out there consistently and clearly, right? That this is what I do. This is what I protect people from, or this is how I help people and make their lives, a million times better. And so we like video ads and, or video view ads, where you're basically running informational videos that provide value. And then you're basically assessing, who watches 50%, 75%, 95%, 100%. And then you can then retarget those individuals with different messages, right? Or, they move up the ladder if they've seen this much of that video, or they're made a secondary offer, like a webinar or a training or a challenge you might be running, or a lead magnet that you might have. And then that should eventually take people to a master class or a training that, step by step walks people through. What we found is working really well for us right now is challenges. So, challenges, we're getting leads for less than $1 a lead. At least this was in March, and things can change rapidly, right? With Facebook changing its algorithms, with all the changes that are taking place with Apple and Facebook. I mean, things can change relatively overnight. And it kind of shifts things up, right? Keeps things fun and exciting, because it doesn't just change for you, it changes for everybody. So everyone's trying to refigure and reconfigure it out. But that's where the advantage lies as well, as the people who can very quickly figure out what's working. And then that masterclass then takes them to a discovery call. And of course, there's little nurturing sequences that take place in between each step of the way. And that takes people to the discovery call. And then if they sign up, then they're going to be nurtured. If they don't sign up, or they have a specific, maybe it's a not now. Usually people, the only objection they have is not now, right? Even if they say it's money, I don't have the money now. It's not that they're saying I don't have the money and I don't care to invest this money. It's I don't have the money, but in the future I might. So everyone's a not now. And you always nurture those people. And I hate to say it this way, but it's until they buy or die, right? And when I say buy, it's not buying stuff from you, it's buying into your vision, right? Are they bought into the vision that they are the doctor of the future? And if they go spend that money somewhere else, that's okay with me, right? I'm in it for what I want for them. What I want for them is them to be healthy. And so whether they buy from me, I don't care, but are they bought into this idea, right? That they are in control of their health. That to me is the win. And so we continue to nurture these people, and then we look at the process, right? We look at the numbers. We look at, okay, this is what it cost us to acquire this person. And then now they've moved through this system here. And on the back end, this is how much revenue we generated. Is this working, right? And, what you do is you make it more efficient, which makes it more effective, which, a byproduct of that is it's more profitable, right? And you would want that. I mean, which business, who would want to say, hey, I have a great business, I help lots of people, makes no money, right? And puts me in more debt every year. Like, okay, you're not getting an award for that, right? You get an award And what would be noteworthy is if you could help lots of people and be profitable, but people are happy, right? And they're more than thrilled about what you've done for them. So they get exponential value from what they paid. So this is a process that we try to coach our practitioners through and help them, kind of see. And then the other thing that we try to do is get them to look at their business through a slightly different lens. So I have them draw a triangle, and we call this the freedom formula. And we divide that triangle into 80-20, and then we divide it again into 80-20. And the one-on-one care that they do is about that tip of that triangle, which is about 4%. And then the 16% in the middle is one to many. And then you have the one to infinity at the very bottom, which is 80% to infinity, where you're helping people in, using a course, you're helping people using a lead magnet, you're helping people using a challenge, right? So these are great and a variety of different tools that we can do to, scale our time, to scale our efforts, to impact people even while we're sleeping, right? So when I talk about, one of the things I always say is when I talk about multiple streams of income, what that really means is multiple streams of impact, right? Because you can't have multiple streams of income unless you're making an impact somewhere. Yep. And so where am I having an impact that's an important question that I ask of myself as well.
That's that's a really good way to frame it, because Pareto's principle, 80-20, and so you're using that directly and applying it to not only the technology but also our effort, as we're trying to make these messages come out of us, get it right, say it the right way, write it in the right way, and then leveraging the tools to get it out there. So going back again to that talk that you gave, you mentioned impact versus the Ferrari. And that was the question you asked the audience was a very interesting one, because you asked, what are you doing this for? And you gave them the options. Like, are you trying to make an impact? Are you trying to help people live better lives? Or are you trying to go for the Ferrari? I wanted to ask you why you asked that question, or why do you use that in your speeches?
Well, see, I think practitioners have oftentimes a negative connotation associated with money, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the way some of them may perceive what that looks like, right? So you see, we're not in this for material gain. However, what we have to realize, we may not be, and it's okay if we are too, right? But we're not in this for material gain. So we can create these like glass ceilings for ourselves, right? But what income is related to directly in proportion to is our impact. So if we plan on making a big impact, then we should also correspondingly expect that our income is going to grow as well, right? It's a natural byproduct. Everything in your life is going to grow, right? You're going to grow, your impact is going to grow, your income is going to grow, right? You're just like in nature, everything grows more every single year. As time passes, things grow, right? So you're going to continue to grow as well. And so for a lot of times we might think, oh, I don't want the Ferrari. I don't want this. I don't want that. I don't need all that money, right? And that can be a self-limiting and self-sabotaging, way of looking at the world, right? You can give it all away, right? Whatever you don't need, you can give away, right? Like we build hospitals, we build orphanages, we build schools. We just built a food bank right now that's under construction, and a cafe. So we build all these things for communities that need it, right? And we let that abundance, flow through us. So a lot of times our relationship with money is very cloudy or jaded. And by kind of looking at it through a different lens, it allows us to think more with an abundance mindset, right? Mm-hmm. Is that our impact is something that we all want. And we have to find a way of measuring that impact. And money is just one of those ways, not the only way.
Right. I've often heard people say that money is a tool. It's not something that we just need to use. Mm-hmm. So last question I have is regarding systems. Now, you obviously spoke about, your funnel, and you spoke about how you're leveraging these tools and, the resources that we have. How have you seen the industry change from, let's say, 5-10 years ago, And are things easier now with all of these tools and systems, or is it harder?
I think there's a steeper learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
So for those people that are willing to either delegate that responsibility to somebody else, which is what they do for a living, right? So that's what I chose to do, is have somebody who knows what they're doing, and is spending all their time and energy knowing what they're doing about that topic. That's the person I want in charge, right? And so I think that it's easier if you hire the right people. However, it's more complicated if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So before, it used to be that you could just boost an ad, right, from your personal page. At one point, you could boost an ad from your personal page. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, more people need to hear this. Click, right? And you would just throw a little bit of money at it. And that's how easy it was. I wish they would do that, right? They would probably make way more money. Because if you have something that you want people to hear, you just pay and more people will hear it, right? It'll be interesting, right? Like how if they can make it that easy. And so, I think it used to be super easy, right? Less strategic, super simple. And now it's probably more complicated, or it can be more complicated and yet more sophisticated. And that, I think, requires expertise to get the most bang for your buck.
Mm-hmm. But still as impactful or more impactful?
You know, it's hard to say, right? Because when you're in it, it's hard to know, right? I think that it was probably easier. There was fewer people sharing this message when I started sharing it. Right. So when I started using Facebook, I started sharing health and wellness, like whatever I was learning, I was, sharing, and people really, resonated with that. And so now that it's a bit of a noisy, space in that sense, because there's more people, and I love that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but then your message has to really stand out. Right. So it can be a little bit harder because there's more people putting that message out there. And that's that's the advantage I see for LinkedIn, is that the message I'm trying to bring there, nobody else is really talking about. And I feel like I can create this culture creep in at least start exposing people to look at health and their, careers and all that stuff through a different lens. So I think there's an advantage there as well.
I would say right now there are two, maybe three opportunities out there, where one is YouTube, because evergreen content, if you can get around or figure out the algorithms and figure out the message, there is an opportunity on YouTube, because there aren't that many functional medicine people talking about it on YouTube. And LinkedIn, definitely. Doctors themselves, I guess, maybe because of time or because they haven't figured out the tool itself, the platform, LinkedIn has a huge opportunity, and organic reach on the platform is by far the best right now. And then TikTok, if you really, have that experimental side of you, then I would say TikTok would be the place as well.
Yeah, I've seen some of my clients have been using TikTok, and it's been getting a lot of engagement for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
it looks
chiropractors
fun.
do very well.
Yeah, it looks very fun. Like, it looks like a fun place to be. However, it may or may not be certain people's personalities too, right? So we have to find a platform that kind of suits our personality, right? Where we feel right at home. And for me, I like the tools that Facebook has created. I'm really starting to get to know LinkedIn a little bit better, and I see, a great opportunity there. I have an Instagram account, believe it or not, that has over 10,000 followers. And I only installed Instagram on my phone on Monday for the first time ever, because I had an interview, and I'm actually going to delete it right now that I realize it's on there. So yeah, interesting fun fact. I have an Instagram following, and I'm not on Instagram. So let me remove the app here. I had a interview with FullScript. And so they go on IG Live, and I was like freaking out, because I'm like, how do I do this? I've never done this before, Right. I'm a Facebook guy. So it was interesting to use that platform. But So for me, Instagram is not somewhere I spend any time on my schedule being, right? So we got to find what works for us.
Yeah. And focus. Yeah, 100%. Well, Sachin, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Obviously not Instagram. Facebook, what's your link on Facebook if you want to drop that, and maybe your website?
Yeah, sure. So on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/the Sachin Patel. And certainly, if you want to learn more about some of the coaching that we do, you can go to perfectpracticementorship.com. That's a good place to learn more about some of the services that we offer. And thank you, Burhan, for this opportunity and great conversation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. Thank you. So thank you for listening to the podcast episode. If you want to check out Sachin, the links will be in the show notes below. He also has a podcast called Private Practice on Apple and all of the other podcasting platforms. Definitely take a listen. And I just wanted to close out the episode with a bit of a summary. So in terms of what Sachin and I spoke about, we spoke about the systems that you need to have in place, getting on social, getting your message right, getting your word out to the people that make a difference, and basically using the challenges or finding a way to stand out from the crowd, because there is a lot more competition, there's a lot more people talking about functional medicine, there's a lot more noise on the internet, not just about functional medicine, but also just other marketers or other business owners also occupying space on Facebook, if that's your platform. And so, definitely consider taking courses, taking programs, having a listen to podcast episodes, following a few inspirational, educational people to figure out how to do your marketing a little bit better. And just remember that it's one of those things that you can develop over time. It's not something you need to get right from the beginning, because it's one of those things where, just like in business, getting your first client was difficult, but then the second was not as difficult, and then the third, and then the fourth, and as we go on. So marketing is the same thing, where the first time we try to do a Facebook Live, or the first time we try to do a podcast episode, or the first time we build a marketing funnel or decide to do a challenge, or whatever the case may be, the first round is always going to be the worst or the hardest. And as we get into time and we do these things a little bit more and be persistent with our message and clarify our message and learn the tools a little bit more and dig into what works and what doesn't work, that's when we start opening our message out. And Sachin is a perfect example of this, because he's been doing content for a long time, and he still feels like he's not doing enough, which is interesting, because he is making an impact, and I can attest to the fact that I can see that he is. So with that being said, thank you for watching the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, definitely hit the review, give us a follow wherever you're listening to it. And yeah, we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.